Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy, bringing you enlightening television for your evolving soul. When it comes to your career, do you feel as if you're stuck at a ceiling in your comfort zone? Or are you rocking your zone of genius? Your zone of genius is where your top innate talents meet your greatest passion. According to my guest, Michelle Lange, branding and marketing specialist, when you discover your zone of genius, you are uniquely positioned to excel and achieve extraordinary success. Prepare to be inspired as Positive Energy starts right now. Hey, Michelle, welcome to Positive Energy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today.
I'm excited to have you here to talk about zone of genius and much more. So let's start out. So what is zone of genius and why is it so important to express it in your work?
So your zone of genius is usually the intersection between what you are naturally good at, your innate talent. You've probably had it since the day you were born. Your passion, like what you really authentically love to do. In fact, you might love it so much that even if it wasn't your job, you'd still be doing it
anyway.
Yeah. And where your interest and skill set lie. But even if it's a skill that you learned, it was already an innate talent there.
I love that. I love the coined term of a zone. You know, it's like it puts a parameter around it, a bubble around it, contains it. And I love the idea that we all have that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you don't even have to, like, it's about uncovering it because it's already
it's
there.
there.
It's already there. It's always been there since the day you were born.
So technically, you wouldn't think it would be hard to uncover that, but sometimes we all need a little help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Somebody to reflect that back to us.
Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with your upbringing. Some of us, like I was very lucky to grow up in a home where it was naturally brought out. I was in a very creative family, so the creativity was always encouraged. If you were born in a home that, you hear a lot of people who were artists born into a home that's very, traditional professions, and the artist, the creative was stamped out of them for whatever reason. That's where their zone of genius has been covered or stamped out or not allowed to flourish, and part of their growth and spiritual journey is about rediscovering it.
So that's a great example. Can you say a little bit more about what it looks like when someone is not operating in their zone of genius, so people will know, so they can recognize it in their life and what it feels like,
right,
as well as looks like and how it shows up?
Exactly. So what happens is it's sometimes a process of discovery. So the first sign is not feeling really impassioned by what you're doing.
Got it.
And you've got to distinguish, though. So let's take an example of a lawyer. I have some attorney friends where they hated their job, but they loved law. And maybe they were working in the wrong section of law, or they were at a big firm, and what they wanted was to have their own business where they could do projects they're passionate about. So you first need to distinguish, is it my situation, is it my circumstance that's stamping out my passion? Once you've eliminated that, and you need to uncover, sometimes like my lawyer friend, he was in the right field, wrong niche, and wrong focus within that field. So sometimes, a lot of times, it's really about listening to your heart and your intuition and what keeps coming up. And so once he was able to tune into the projects and the niches within that field that excited him, and to have the courage to go out and start his own business, that's when he started loving what he was doing.
Ah, I see. Okay. So what if you're nowhere near that, your zone of genius? You're far off from that and you're miserable and you have no idea how do you help people, or what are some of the methods so people can start to identify their zone of genius?
Sure. So an important distinguisher I want to make is that you've got your zone of genius and you've got your zone of excellence.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. My zone of genius is in the communication and in the messaging and finding the words that really can capture what somebody does in their own unique way. I could have gone to law school. At one point I was going to go to law school, and I could have been excellent in that field. So you can't confuse what you're really good at with the zone of genius. So what you're really good at can disguise that. And there are many people who live a satisfied life as a doctor or a lawyer, an accountant, or something of that sort, where it wasn't their zone of genius. There's others, like there are other doctors, lawyers, accountants, where it is their zone of genius. So, and you know that by how you feel about it. And if another sign is if you're doing one thing and it just keeps coming as a recurring thought, I wonder what my life had been like had I been this, or I'm really wishing I was doing this. That's your own inner being giving you a message. And it's about listening and tuning in. So when people aren't clear, the first thing they need to do is to pay attention to what keeps coming up. What keeps coming up? The second thing to do is to really think back to when you were a child. What did you absolutely love to do that you could do for hours? And the third thing is a lot of times their zone of genius is something that they're already doing as a hobby. So for example, somebody might love working with animals. They love it. They could volunteer all weekend for an animal rescue and just be in sheer joy. That's a sign right there. And the other thing about zone of genius that you need to realize is it's not always tethered to one specific expression. So like from what I know about you, Michelle, you are a natural healer. So whether you work with grown-ups or animals or children or teens, you will naturally be bringing that same gift and that same essence to your work. And sometimes it's just pivoting who you're doing it with that can take you from, hey, I like this a lot, to I'm feeling the complete joy. Because that's another thing.
Liking it to loving it. Off the charts.
Just like the lawyer who left the big firm, started focusing on small civil cases, and now loves it, loves helping the little man. So it's sometimes it's just
settle.
a pivot.
Don't you find that
Most people.
And they don't even realize they're settling because they're not raised, again, they're not conditioned or taught that they deserve more or that more is even possible. So they don't even dare to dream that what they're getting paid for and what they're doing as work could be something that they're ecstatic about, love, and can't wait to get up in the morning.
Exactly. And there are people that have a very limiting beliefs that are keeping them from the zone of genius. So for example, there's a lot of people early on that get messages from the family of, well, that's great, but that's a hobby. Or you can't make money at that. Or everyone in our family is a doctor or a lawyer, right? That type of thing. Or at the time my mom was growing up, you were either a social worker, a teacher, or a stay-at-home mom. So there's messages from your family, there's messages from society. But even when you're working with a grown-up who's, in their 40s and left their family years ago, the biggest piece that we often have to get through are the limiting beliefs that it's possible to have a career doing what you love. And we're living in this time, especially with the internet, where people can make careers out of the wildest things. I have a friend who just made $95,000 online creating a course for those who decorate cakes. Okay.
Wow.
Another woman I know is a millionaire off of her online dog training. So anything you can think of, you can probably find an audience for. And that is when your zone of genius really can lead to huge success, is when you can marry the zone of genius with what the market needs and wants.
Yeah, I love it. So there really are no limits, but starting with some of this self-awareness and asking those right questions, because that really shifts your energy. And then it's like you're exuding love for what you do, and then that's a magnet.
It is a magnet, and all sorts of opportunities come because remember, the universe says your wish is my command. So if all of a sudden you're putting it out there of, oh my God, I have this amazing supplement for pregnant women and it's going to change your life, and that's what you're vibrating, then it's a beacon and the universe will send to you the people that need it. It's pretty amazing the way it works.
I love that. And certainly we could also equate it to when we talk about someone having a soul purpose.
Yes.
And a dharma, and a path that we're all like pre-birth. We laid some of that out. It is about uncovering that.
Yes.
So it is really your deeper overarching purpose, why we're here.
Why you're here.
And it's wired within us to remember that and to know that and to follow that. And you're right, it's when something just delights us and turns us on.
Yes.
when we think about doing it and when we're doing it. We're in the moment. We're in the zone.
Yes, and there's something important to realize about your zone of genius. It will likely come so easy to you that you don't even think of it as a unique gift.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy. It's so effortless. And so one way that when people don't know what their zone of genius is, one assignment I give our clients is to ask 5 people you're close to, what have you observed that I do extraordinarily well, or where I really shine, And it can help for other people can see it so much more clearly.
I was going to say,
than
why
you
does
can.
that work so well? Because people can see things that we can't.
Yes.
They're not inside of us.
Yes.
They're outside of us, but they know us really well.
Yes, and when it comes easily to you, you're going to tend to take it for granted.
So does knowing your zone of genius and being in your zone of genius almost guarantee success? I mean, obviously there's still more work and action that you have to take, but you're much more in alignment.
You're way more in alignment. You're way more likely to really stand out, because you can usually do this better than most people. You'll usually be in the top 1% because you can do something. You do it so extraordinarily well that it's where you shine.
And you do it naturally.
You do it naturally.
And people are drawn to that.
Yeah. But there are other key elements to success, right? So usually when somebody's coming into their zone of genius, there's almost like a spiritual journey that happens where you need certain skills, and you need to. So for example, when I was starting my business, that was sort of the first 3 years. There were certain things I needed to get in place. There were things I needed to learn. There were areas I needed to grow. So there's this growth point that is going to challenge you, but you need to stay with it. And that's when you gain mastery. And that's when you have your breakthrough. So like Michael Jordan, I'm sure he was always great at basketball, but there was probably a period of time that he was put through the ringer and told, you got to be better and better and better in order to make it to the pro. Same with a young pianist, really getting to the level where they can perform at concerts.
Yeah.
They're,
so
a good
it's all
coach.
that raw material.
It's all there. It's the potential. It's like a flower that needs to be watered, and then it opens up, and it's the most beautiful thing you've seen.
And that's for all of us.
It's for all of us. Everyone has it.
Yeah.
And for those who believe in the soul, it's, there are many people that believe that it's part of your soul imprint. It's part of your blueprint. It's part of your contract from the time you came. And that's why, and the soul is so smart. When you are not living it, it will keep nudging you until you listen.
Yeah. It's like things will get worse, sort of, or
sometimes
you'll get more out of alignment. And we could say that's the spiritual reason for people getting depressed or anxious or feeling stuck. It's that there's nudges they're not listening to from their soul.
Right. Or they'll start manifesting health problems, like getting illness, so they don't need to go into work, Yeah.
So you've said a lot about how you help clients, but are there any other specific methods so that maybe even someone listening and watching right now can start, pick up on something, a tip, whether it's something they write or something they do self-reflection on or meditation on or asking themselves those powerful questions? What do you recommend so people can discover their zone of genius?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few questions I would have them just journal and write about, and really do it as automatic writing, uncensored. So the first question,
don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it. So the first question is, what did I love to do when I was a child? Like when I was given playtime or free time, or even at school, what did I absolutely love? And then write down, what am I extraordinarily good at, or just very good at? And what have people told me I'm good at? And then now in the present day, what do I love to do? If I had unlimited time and unlimited resources, what would I be doing with that time?
Yeah.
And then the fourth thing I would write about is, what brings me joy? What really brings me joy? And can I make a living at that? So let's say there was somebody where being around little children brought them joy, or being a mom brought them joy. Well, can I be around more children? I have a friend who left her job and opened up a whole performing arts preschool. That gives her joy. She went from being a lawyer to now owning a beautiful preschool that flourished so much that they're now opening a second one.
I'm sure every person has a story. Everybody who's successful and found that has traced it back. I love the idea of going back to your original joy.
Yeah.
And if we have to go as far back as childhood, often to remember that.
Yes. Yes, yes. And there's different layers too of being able to see your zone of genius. So some people are living in their zone of genius, but they don't even realize they are. They're just living their passion and loving what they're doing. So there's this other level of sometimes, in branding, one of the things we first do is identify what differentiates that person, what makes them unique. And so somebody may be living in their zone of genius, but not be able to put language to what makes them extraordinary and what makes them unique. And it's often through interviewing them that I can uncover that and then put words to it.
Right, there's a skill set in that. So do you think that people can do it completely on their own, or they can at least start to identify for themselves, but do we need a coach or a mentor or a guide or a teacher, a leader or an author to help us put it into practice so you can actually realize your dreams and your goals?
Yeah, I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think there are people that all they need to do is once they realize it, once they get clear, they go for it.
They're off and running.
I still think if you're developing a business around your zone of genius, then having a mentor, having a business coach really show
Speeds
you
it up.
how to make that profitable is really important. And also having somebody really help you, coach you through your mindset blocks and fears around going for it. Because resistance, your subconscious wants to keep you where you are because it makes you feel safe and it's trying to keep you safe.
Yes.
And so when you start going for it, you will have resistance kick in. So having
It'll
a coach,
kick in even more.
Right. So having a coach that can point that out to you and help you really work through that is important. And then also, I would say the third piece, once you have left what you're doing, and if you have started a business, having a branding expert really be able to help you put language to it so that you can effectively communicate to other people what differentiates you, which is important for all of your marketing.
Very important, the languaging, the words that will reach people and will engage people.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say too is sometimes it's not about leaving a job. Sometimes it can be, you may work at a big company where it's about creating a new role at that company. And that's the beauty of getting clear. Because once you can get clear and have the language to communicate what your zone of genius is, you can open up a new opportunity sometimes. So I have a friend who I forget what her role was, but she's at JP Morgan and she really wanted to go into leadership coaching. And she was able to create a role at her company doing leadership coaching and development.
So sometimes it's just a matter of tweaking things and
Pivoting.
thinking outside the box and being willing to get out of your comfort zone. So that's one of your really great examples, because we really want to inspire people, because so many people you hear, they feel stuck and they don't see a way out. So are there any other inspirational examples that you have for that, people who felt that way, but they're in such a different place now?
Yeah. And so it's really interesting because I would say almost all the entrepreneurs I know right now were originally doing something else before they created their business. Especially the ones that tend to be between ages 35 and 55 and up. I mean, a lot of these millennials are really great about knowing exactly what they want to do, creating something outside the box, going out and getting venture funding and starting a company, right? You see that more and more. But more people in our generation, I think a lot of people go through this metamorphosis between 35 and 55 of really discovering that what they're doing is not what they really want. And so most people I know who now have their own business created something they really wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's my story. It's your story too. Do you want to say anything about your own story, how you discovered and more about what you do, because you're operating in your zone of genius?
Thank you.
Yeah.
For me, it was sort of like a pivot. So I grew up with the love of acting. I almost, and directing. So I used to direct people, the movie Grease came out when I was a kid, and I would spend
I have that whole movie memorized.
Me too.
I've watched it, I swear, 100, 200 times.
Yep.
I could quote.
Yep. When I was a kid, I used to walk around being like, I've seen it 29 times. And then I was like 8 years old. So basically, and so that was an indicator, right? I would, on recess and after school reenact all these scenes, cast it, direct all my friends. And so I went into theater, but I realized that I wanted to be on the other side of the camera. So then I went into feature film development, working with Hollywood writers and screenplays and all of that. So and this is where I mentioned that sometimes you're close. You're on the reservation, but you're staying in the wrong cabin. You need to go down the road. So what I realized was that I didn't want to be really entrenched in Hollywood, where my career and livelihood depended on it, and that I was really drawn to working with entrepreneurs and coaches and consultants. And so what I did was I took those skills and I took those gifts of storytelling and working on messaging and coaching people on their delivery of their message, and ended up bringing that over to work with entrepreneurs and companies. And so I still get to use all the acting background in directing people on camera and making videos and creating their messaging and their marketing campaigns, but it's still using a lot of those gifts, but pivoting them into a different niche.
I think that's important for people to hear, given wherever they are now, that nothing is a waste. Yes. Wherever they are, they're still there for a reason. They still have been led there, even if it's not where they want to end up or where they're most in alignment. Still, there's something for them to learn, and maybe that's going to add up. It's going to accumulate, and they're going to use that. They're going to draw upon it. So you want people to get the most out of where they are now, of course, while they're going through this kind of exploration and change. Yeah,
and sometimes people are at companies where they're doing one role, and somebody in the leadership recognizes their gift, and promotes them to a new role.
Isn't that nice when that happens?
Yeah, and so
but that's in the cards, we would say as well.
And so even at the preschool, the director of the preschool started as a teacher, and the owner of the preschool saw a gift of being able to be, make executive decisions and oversee people. So she promoted her, and this woman loves her job now.
Oh my gosh.
So things like that can happen.
So that must be so rewarding for you to see that. I mean, that's why you do what you do, because how rewarding is it when somebody finally steps into that in that way, and it's life-changing. It really is life-changing. And I bet it frees up people's energy, and then that's the ripple effect. They want to help other people then to do the same, right? When you're really happy in what you do, you want to see everybody come in the pool, join in with me, the water's warm, let's,
Absolutely. And that's when your purpose, that's when we tie in your purpose, because usually your zone of genius will be used in an act of service. And that will become, because that also, the soul on whatever level wants to serve, it wants to give, it wants to help. It's the highest expression of your soul when you can use your gifts in a way that helps others. And so that's where you start getting to figure out what your purpose is and the why behind what you do.
Yeah.
And when you're living that, it's incredibly powerful. You're pretty much unstoppable.
So can you say, we're getting towards the end, but can you boil any of that down to just a few nuggets, maybe to repeat again for people to take away?
Sure, absolutely. So so just kind of like a summary, would that be helpful? Okay, so your zone of genius is where your unique gifts, what you're innately good at, your passion, what you love to do, and your abilities converge. And you know that you're living in your unique genius when there's a joy and a flow to what you do. When you wake up and want to do it every day. It's effortless. And if you don't know what that is, there's some exploratory questions to ask yourself that I mentioned in this video. And you also need to make a determination if you need extra support in order to really either uncover it or to take the courageous, inspired action to take the steps to live it out. And then once you've made that decision, you need to determine how well you're able to articulate it to the people that you actually want to do business with or to win over. If you're at a company, it's the executive team. And so then if you need support with that, there are people like me and there's other branding marketing strategists who can help you do that.
Well, I want to say that I reached out to you, and to be transparent, we're working together, and it's really been a pleasure, and it's made a real big difference for me. And that I would encourage people and point them in your direction too, to help you exactly with this.
Oh, thank you.
Specifically. So I hope that people will reach out to you, and I really appreciate all that you've shared.
It's been my pleasure, and I've loved working with you, Michelle.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Michelle, so much. Thank you for being a positive energy.
Thank you.
We're wrapping up another enlightening show. I truly hope you will discover your zone of genius, because there are people out there waiting for your unique brilliance. And if you need some assistance with that, reach out to me for mindset transformation coaching. Thank you for watching, and join me next time on Positive Energy.